So, my father-in-law, let's call him Ivan, and I have never had the smoothest relationship, but recently it has gotten even worse than before. I've been married for 4 years and I've been with my husband Stephen for 6 years now. I get along with him and his mother because they are progressive enough and have always let me live my life the way I want without criticizing me for it. But his father seems to be a little orthodox and conservative in his views on such things. For instance, he didn't even like the fact that I wanted to work after I got married, and he took a really long time to accept the fact that sometimes I would have to work longer hours than my husband because I had more responsibilities in my workplace than he did at his. He tried to drop several hints that he was not fine with this kind of thing, but I always pretended that I didn't understand what he was getting at because honestly, I was not going to let anybody stop me from achieving what I wanted. So anyway, that's how it's been for the past couple of years. He has consistently been trying to let me know as subtly and gently as he can that he would want me to let my work take a back seat and focus more on my household. And I've been ignoring him. I think that's the most peaceful way for us to deal with these things because otherwise there's going to be a lot of confrontation and drama, and I don't think either of us want that right now. At least that's what I thought, and that's what the unspoken agreement was. But recently it was broken, and I didn't like it at all because the things that were said by him were not nice. They were in very poor taste. So since then, not only have I stopped speaking to him at all, I have also said and done certain things to teach him a lesson, and my in-laws think that I'm being petty because of that. Basically, about 2 weeks ago, I was offered a promotion at my workplace, and it really put me in a dilemma. It was a significant promotion. It would come with a big pay raise, and I could do with that kind of money. But at the same time, I did not think I had a future at that company anymore because honestly, even this promotion came a little too late, and it only came because they had probably realized that I was losing interest, so they wanted to retain me somehow. Unfortunately, it didn't work because in my head, I had already made up my mind that I was not going to work here anymore because I didn't feel like I was having fun, and most importantly, I had already been planning to quit my job so that I could start something of my own for a couple of months now. I had already been working on a business plan and everything, and if I quit my job now, I would be able to dedicate more time to it. And soon enough, I would be starting something. If I accepted this promotion, though, and continued to work here, I would probably regret it because I wouldn't want to quit later. And again, like I said, in the long scheme of things, I eventually wanted to have my own business, so it was essential for me to make up my mind. But even then, I told my employers that I would give it some thought and then come back to them. Coincidentally, that very evening, we had dinner with our families, so his parents and my parents were all there. And while we were talking about things, this just came out. I didn't actually intend on telling them anything about it because I wasn't sure if I was accepting the promotion, but I accidentally said it out loud, probably because it was weighing on my mind. My parents were obviously very happy. They congratulated me and everything, and then I chose not to tell them about my plans of quitting my job so I could start my own business because that did not seem like the right thing to do at that point in time. Besides, the person who had the most reason to be concerned in all of this, my husband, already knew everything, so I had more reason to worry. It was already an accident on my part to let them know about the promotion. I didn't want to let them in on more because they would probably worry me then. So I decided to keep my mouth shut about what I was thinking and just accepted their congratulations so that we could have a nice and peaceful evening together. Unfortunately, my father-in-law did not have any intention of keeping his mouth shut and keeping his opinions to himself because as soon as he heard that I would be getting paid more, his face instantly fell. And as if that was not bad enough, a couple of seconds later, he started to congratulate me. But then he also began to talk about how back in his day, this is not how marriages work. He started saying stuff like how in his time real men would provide for the family, real women would stay at home, be passive and try to help out, but never out-earn their husband out of respect. He seemed genuinely upset while he was talking about all this, and it was clear he was not happy about the fact I was getting promoted, and now, soon enough, I would be making more money than his son. Obviously, he thought that it was wrong, and he did not bother to hide it, and it made the whole affair very uncomfortable. His wife tried to bring him under control. She tried to tell him that things were different now, but he was not having it. He just kept on talking about how everything had changed. He kept glancing at me over and over again, probably because he was trying to mock me. I kept my cool, though. I did not say anything that I would regret later. And my parents were also sensible enough to ignore all his ridiculous comments. Only Stephen and his mother tried to control him, but unfortunately he had decided to choose that day to let out all his frustration with me. And he just kept going on until it was time for them to leave. By the time he was about to leave, I was so exhausted and frustrated that I had already decided what I was going to do. And that plan of action has been put into motion since then, that very day itself. For those of you who are wondering what I'm talking about, that evening itself, I decided that I was going to quit my job and I was going to start my own business. Now, of course, people might think that I made that choice because of Ivan and his stupid comments, but honestly, that was not even a part of it. I had already been thinking about quitting because, to be very frank, the only thing that Ivan was right about was the fact that I had to work very long hours. And if I accepted the promotion, it would turn out to be even longer. And then I would have to wait twice the time that I did for another promotion. And that's what really struck me, because I really wanted to spend time at home with Stephen as well. Besides, in another 2 years, I was planning on having a baby, so there was a lot to think about. And that was the only thing about Ivan's speech that stayed with me and affected my decision a little bit. So, ironically, even though he wanted me to quit working altogether, it actually had the opposite effect on me. And Ivan made me realize that I really did not want to continue working in this place, because it was just not worth it, no matter how much money they paid me. At the end of the evening, after everyone had left, and while Stephen was trying to apologize to me for whatever Ivan had been saying, I had decided to tell him that I was going to quit my job and I was going to spend the next couple of months trying to build a business from scratch. He was very happy about it. He congratulated me and everything, and then I decided to tell him about what I had in mind for Ivan. Because whatever he had said that day, it had really made me very upset, and I felt like he needed to realize that he couldn't just say things like this. He couldn't make comments like this and get away with it every time. For a couple of years I had been tolerating it, but not anymore. So Stephen and I came up with a plan. We decided that we were going to tell his family that I had decided to quit my job. But we were not going to tell them about my plans of starting a new business sometime soon. We were going to tell them instead that we had decided to obey Ivan because he did have a point. But now, since I would not be bringing home my income, Stephen would ask his father to contribute to the household finances and step in my place. Stephen had retired recently, and my mother-in-law had stopped working as soon as she got married. They were living off of only his income and whatever he had inherited from his parents and in-laws in the past. Luckily, Stephen had had a good job when he was working, so he retired with enough savings to keep him comfortable for the rest of his life, along with his wife. However, that was it. I don't think that he would be able to support us on his retirement fund as well. without it cutting into his plans severely, because I knew that he liked traveling. So for Stephen to ask his father to support him financially because I had decided to quit my job seemed like the perfect payback for everything that had been said, not just at that particular dinner, but also throughout our marriage. We thought it was a pretty great plan, and the very next day we decided to put it into action, because I think we had waited long enough. We had stayed silent enough for quite a significant amount of time simply because we did not want any sort of confrontation or drama. But if Ivan thought that our silence meant that we were scared of standing up to him, then he was really wrong about that. The day after that dinner itself, Stephen called up his father and told him everything about my decision to quit my job. And in the beginning, I could hear that Ivan was very happy, because he probably thought that his speech had had the desired effect. But then Stephen started talking about how it was going to affect his financial condition quite badly, because the lifestyle he was used to was only attainable and affordable because of my income. Of course, I made just as much money as he did, and on our combined income, we were quite comfortable since we didn't even have any kids yet. But now, without that money coming in every month, he was scared of what was going to happen. And he really did not want to dig into his savings because he wanted to keep that for the future, especially for when we would have children. He also did not want to compromise on our current lifestyle, which would inevitably happen since now I had chosen to stop working. And so because it was his father who had come up with this great idea, Stephen was asking his father to help him out financially, at least until he was able to get to a stage in his career where he would be able to support both of us without my income, without cutting corners. While he was saying all this, that is when I heard Ivan stuttering and fumbling on the other end of the call, because he was clearly not expecting this to happen, and everything had backfired. He started to tell his son that at the end of the day, this was our family. These were our financial issues, and if we were not able to support ourselves on only one income, then we should probably try to adjust accordingly and stop leading such an expensive lifestyle. But Stephen argued that it was Ivan's idea in the first place, and he did not want to use his savings because he was putting aside for his future children, Ivan's future grandkids, so he definitely had to help out. Besides, it was not just that he was used to a certain kind of lifestyle because of his marriage to me. He had been used to a comfortable life even before that, because that's how Ivan and his mother had brought him up. So they couldn't just expect him to cut corners one fine morning and be okay with it. Ivan tried desperately to talk his way out of it, but Stephen was not having it. He kept insisting that now his father had to help him out financially. It was quite funny to listen to the whole conversation, especially because I knew that this was not true at all. But we had put him in a spot, and now he was struggling to talk his way out of it. Now, for the past couple of weeks, this has been going back and forth, and we have been messing with him relentlessly. Ivan has been coming up with many solutions for Stephen, and we have been shooting it down. First, he said that we should ask my parents for help as well. And Stephen said that I had already done that, and they had declined, so now they had the chance of getting into our good books by stepping up here. Then Ivan said that he couldn't continue supporting him indefinitely, and at some point in time he would have to stop because at the end of the day he had limited resources and he was not working anymore. So he only had a retirement fund, and he did not want to drain that completely. So then Stephen started being emotionally manipulative and everything, and it was just really funny. Obviously, in the end, Ivan had to accept that maybe whatever he had said was not the right thing to have said. And a couple of days ago, he finally came up to me, not on the phone, but personally. He visited me and apologized to me, saying he did not realize that his suggestions would create such trouble in our lives. he started to tell me that maybe it was not necessary for me to quit my job because it cannot possibly be that bad to work and be independent for a woman, and maybe I was a different kind of woman than whatever he had seen in his time. He seemed pretty earnest and sincere, and I think he was just scared that he would have to end up supporting us financially. And that was why he was apologizing, not because he was actually that sorry about whatever he had said. But anyway, at that point, Stephen and I thought that we had finally cracked him, and so we told him the truth eventually. He knew he was going to be upset, but we didn't expect him to go back on whatever he had said so quickly. Because as soon as we told him the truth, he immediately started calling me names. He cussed me out. He was just generally very rude and a lot more angry than we had expected him to be. Obviously, Stephen kicked him out because nobody was going to talk to me like that under my own roof. But now, judging by his reaction, we are wondering if we went too far. So here's the deal, I guess. AITA for messing with my father-in-law just to get him to apologize to me for telling me to be a more passive as a wife. Edit. Okay, I thought that I had made this clear in the original post itself, but some people still seem to be a little confused in the comments. So I'll just explain it to you guys one more time. I've actually quit my job. That part is true. But unlike what I have led my in-laws to believe, I definitely have an intention of working again. And this time I will be working for myself and starting my own business. I will not be going back to my old company. I will be starting something for myself from scratch. That is the part that they don't know. And we don't actually need their help in the financial sense because my dad and I have enough savings to fall back on for the next couple of months. Probably even longer because I'm assuming it's going to take time for my business to break even and start profiting. So yeah, we are completely sorted on the financial front, and we were just trying to make Ivan think that he needs to help us out because we wanted to make him feel accountable for whatever had happened. Since he was clearly not feeling sorry about everything that he had said that day, I guess some of you guys thought that we were actually counting on him, but no, we were just messing with him. And a lot of you wanted to know what exactly he had said during his outburst after we had told him the truth. And I don't really want to repeat it because he was very nasty about the whole thing. Honestly, he had gotten all up in my face and it was just very unpleasant, which is why I do not want to talk about it. I think it's enough for me to just say that he used a lot of unpleasant and derogatory terms for me, and he implied that I was the one brainwashing his son and making him do all the nonsense on my behalf, because otherwise he would never have done anything like this to mess with his father, because he respects his parents and their views and beliefs, unlike me. Well, I don't know how to explain to him that I don't have to convince his son or brainwash him to do anything at all. Stephen was quite happy to take part in this massive prank and in fact does not respect his father's opinions at all and disagrees with them as frequently and vehemently as possible. But whatever. I didn't say any of that because before I had the opportunity to do that, Stephen had kicked his dad out, and I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful to have him by my side through all of this. Update 1, everybody. So, like I had said, Ivan was obviously very unhappy about this turn of events, and he demanded an apology from me, and surprisingly enough, even my mother-in-law, somebody who has always been passive throughout most of this, also said that we had taken things too far, and that we should apologize because Ivan was really hurt and concerned about everything that had been going on. I found that very hypocritical of her because so far she had never said a word to us to try and diffuse the situation. She had never said anything to Ivan to get him to apologize to us, even though she knew for a fact that he was in the wrong. But now, just because it was Ivan who was getting affected, she wanted us to apologize? Yeah, we were not doing that. and we told her in the most straightforward and blunt way possible that if she had to pick sides, and if she was going to pick Ivan's side here, then we were done. Stephen and his mother had a short argument about that, and now nobody's talking to one another. There is a wall between our families, and Stephen is a bit upset about it, but I don't have an issue with it at all. Obviously, I do feel bad for Stephen because he's a nice person. He doesn't deserve any of this nonsense, but if his parents have chosen to act like this, then I don't really know what to say. However, I would really like to thank everybody who took out time to comment on my earlier post. And thank you to everybody who was so supportive of me and told me that we had not taken things too far at all. In fact, it was the funniest and most harmless way to deal with Ivan. And he was the one who had taken things too far by cussing at me and trying to humiliate me. I spoke to my parents about all of this as well, and I explained the whole situation and how we dealt with it, and they found it hilarious. While we were telling them everything, they were laughing hysterically. So that just told me that I had done the right thing and I had dealt with a very bad situation in a harmless and humorous way. So what's wrong with that? I also obviously spoke to my parents about my decision to quit my job, not accept a promotion and start something of my own. They were a little surprised in the beginning because they were expecting something else, but they were very supportive of it later on and have given me a huge boost of confidence. And Stephen as well, in spite of his issues with his own family, in spite of how upset he has been regarding them, has been very supportive of me, and honestly, I could not have been more grateful for these people in my life, because the fact that he has kept aside all his own issues, all his own emotions, only to be supportive of me, just means so much to me. Of course, I am trying my best to be there for him, but honestly, he just doesn't want to talk about anything with regards to his parents. And I'm trying to respect that right now, because I know for a fact that when he's ready to discuss it, he will come to himself, and that's how it works. I know he's a different person. He needs his space to deal with certain things, and this is one of those situations where I can't just hound him and expect him to open up to me, so I'm letting him be for now. If anybody has any advice on how to deal with it, or any wife who has dealt with a situation like this, do let me know what I can do to make it easier for him, because I know that if I was having a hard time with my parents, he would be doing everything in his power to make it easier for me. And I want to do the same for him as well. All that being said, thank you so much to everybody who has been so supportive of me once again, because it honestly means a lot to me. The whole thing with Ivan and my in-laws in general, it has messed with my head a lot, and I'm not going to allow it to do so anymore. I'm done with them, for real. And if they don't get their act together and apologize to me and my husband, then I don't see any future where I will be taking them back into my life. And it's their loss, to be very honest, because I know for a fact that in a couple of years, Stephen and I will start trying for a baby. And I intend on having 2 kids at the very least. So they will never get to see the grandkids if they don't fix their behavior. And the biggest loss is always going to be theirs. So I really hope they understand that and they apologize. Not for my sake, but for their sons. Update 2. Hey everyone. So it's been a couple of months since my last update, and things have been going pretty smoothly for me. I'm a couple of weeks away from starting my business officially, but everything has been in the works and I have got my investors on board. Everything's ready to go and launch. And honestly, I have never been excited for anything as much as I'm excited for this. I'm gearing up for one of the biggest moments of my life, my first business as the owner. I couldn't have been more pumped if I tried. There have been hurdles, of course, but I don't want to talk about that right now. I just want to talk about the good parts before I get into anything else. And I just want to say that I'm very, very thankful for such a supportive family, especially my husband. The way he had taken on the responsibility of keeping the household running, because sometimes I would get so busy and exhausted with my meetings and late night planning that I didn't even have time to do my share of the chores. But he did it all without complaint, and I really wouldn't have been able to do it without his unwavering help and support. I knew that he was also still struggling to come to terms with the fact that his parents had decided to cut him out of their lives, and in a way, he had also had to cut them off because they would obviously not apologize to us. So I decided to appeal to his mother because I knew that appealing to her maternal side would be easier. And a couple of weeks ago, I got in touch with her, asked her out for lunch, and even though it was quite awkward, I told her about how Stephen was a bit miserable and he was trying really hard not to show it, but I knew he really missed her. He was still dealing with Ivan not being a part of his life, but he couldn't deal with his mom not talking to him. I think he took that particularly hard. Of course, when I said that, she cracked and I got her to agree to attend my launch party. I made it very clear to her that I did not want Ivan there because he would probably just ruin everything, and she agreed. So now I'm just really looking forward to the party because I want to be able to do at least one thing right and reconcile with his mom. But he had always been close to his mother, and I also like her more than her husband, so I really hope that this works out. I'm keeping my fingers crossed for everything to come now. Update 3. Hey, so 3 weeks ago, I finally had my launch party and things went even better than what I had expected. My mother-in-law showed up by herself, and it came as a huge surprise to Stephen, but then there was a lot of hugging and crying, and eventually they were able to reconcile. Thankfully, this happened before the party itself. So there was no emotional scene after all my business associates had arrived. Not that I would have minded, but it would have been a little awkward. Anyway, Stephen is much happier now, and I'm glad that I was able to do that for him because after everything he's done for me, even this seems too little. I know that I was quite late in posting this update, but honestly, I was taking my time because a couple of days before the launch party, I found out I was pregnant, and right now I just have a lot on my plate with my new business and a baby on the way. We haven't told people yet, but we will start soon. And I think everything's happening all at once. So it's quite stressful, but this is a good kind of stress. I had not planned this baby, but since this is happening now, I'm just going to try and make the most of it. And I know that the next couple of months are going to be very strenuous and busy, but I can't wait for it, to be very honest. I'm giddy with joy, and I feel like everything is aligning for me right now. So I couldn't be happier if I tried. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.